Okay, so this whole story all started when I saw this YouTube video by this YouTuber named Dumb Mapping, where he was showcasing this animation of this minimalistic strategy type game thingy, where you can command units with your mouse to try and take the enemy capital and gain territory. I thought that was just the coolest thing ever, and particularly really liked how minimalistic it looked, so I considered making my own game based off of it. But I ultimately decided not to because I was very focused on working on my main project, 5-Star Fishy, which you should totally go with just on Steam, by the way. And ultimately, the opportunity never really presented itself. That is, until I found the Brackeys Game Jam, and I knew what I had to do, regardless of what the theme would end up being. The theme of the jam was Nothing Can Go Wrong, which I thought was probably the most mid-game jam theme I've heard my entire life. I mean, I feel like that could really be applied to anything, but honestly, that's perfect for me because, I already had an idea for a game going into this, so, if the jam theme fits my game, that's just more power to me. I quickly adopted a 5-stage plan to implement a game inspired by the animation to the best of my ability. Step 1, unit movement. I needed to make it so you can use your mouse to draw a line from each unit on your side to command it wherever you want it to go. Step 2 was probably the part that scared me the most, and that was frontline simulation. I quite literally wanted to draw a frontline, kind of like the animation, to represent who controls what. Step 3 was the map. I wanted to add in all sorts of different map features, like lakes and rivers and mountains and things like that. Step 4 was the enemy AI. You need somebody to play against, so they should preferably try to encircle you and try and take your capital. And Step 5 was just to finish and polish the game, add music, sound effects, the main menu, etc. Okay, so the frontline simulation I feel like was definitely the hardest part to figure out while I was working on this project, so I'm going to try and sketch what I was thinking of. So basically my idea for how to create the frontline simulation was you have a bunch of points like this. So you have red ones that represent being on your side, drawing a couple more of these, and they're in a grid sort of pattern. And each point, whenever one of your red unit overlaps them, it switches it to your side. And then you also have points on the blue unit side, which you can also imagine as being blue. And you guessed it, whenever a blue unit overlaps one of these points, they also turn blue. So you might be thinking, how does this have anything to do with the front line? How do you draw a front line out of this? Well, basically what we do is we take these neutral front line points and put each of them in between, the border of where all the blue and red points are. And these neutral lines, I guess you could say, represent the actual front line. Alright, so a little bit of programming later, and we can see this in action. We got the front line spawning in here. You can move in units. And we should see... boom, front line shifts. Now, when I started working on this, I was actually using physical sprites and animations that are just invisible to represent all the points, so I added in a secret button to be able to show them. And you can actually see how this works. And if you're wondering what these boxes are, that's for performance. I just made it so it only checks the sprites overlapping those boxes that are pinned to those objects to, make it so our computer doesn't explode while it's happening. And I think it looks really cool with the points being shown like this. Now, the only problem with that solution is that in spite of the performance box things, it's still not very good for performance. Ultimately, that solution just doesn't really work on a wider scale when it comes to performance, but that's okay because I have a secret weapon. Arrays. Arrays, in case you don't know, are basically just you can imagine them as a grid or a plane of variables. So, you can find a variable, let's say, x equals 5, y equals 11 or something, and check if that value is true or false or 1 or 5 or anything like that. And instead of using physical points like in the last version, now I just use an array to represent all the points. Now the bad news is that this means I can't see the points anymore, which sucks because it looks cool, but it definitely works much better. And also I made it so you can command multiple units at once now, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, you can see that the performance is smooth as butter now. Amazing. Now you see here that there are some minor visual bugs when multiple units run into each other. I would eventually end up fixing that bug later, but I'll get to that later. It was definitely a little bit painful to fix. Anyway. Alright, so here you can see the mill noteboard that I used while working on this project. love using Milnote for organizing all sorts of my projects. You could also see some of the encouragement that I gave myself while I was working on this, because this was quite a technically challenging project for my skill level. Now you might notice one other thing, and that's that I switched steps 3 and 4, and that's because, well, I kind of just ran out of time a little bit. I planned on doing the map first, but I realized that the jam was 1 week long, and like I was halfway through and I barely managed to be like about done step 1 and step 2, so I decided that step 3 is more important and I'd sideline step 4, and spoiler alert, I never really got to doing step 4. I might update the project with it, but no plans at the current moment. So, let's go into step 3. How did I add in the AI for the game? Well, the most important part of the AI was the encirclement code. I need to make it so you can actually kill the AI, and that took me a really long time to figure out. But basically the solution that I used is I used a tile map in the background, and these yellow dots represent the capital for you and for your enemy respectively. And basically what I did is I found a Construct 3 plugin called Floodfill Tile Map or something like that, and I have a tile map in the background where I set all of the, like, tiles to, the blue tiles if blue controls them, and the red tiles if red controls them, and then from there, I used a flood fill for, like, blue, okay, well, let me step back. So I used, I manually painted in the tiles from the array, to be, isolated blue for the blue ones, and isolated red for the red ones. And then I used a flood fill from each capital for, I guess I'll call it local blue for the blue ones and local red for the red ones. And if the red is like, if an area is not isolated, then it'll be local red, and if it is isolated, then it'll be isolated red. And what all that does is it detects if there has been an encirclement. And if there has been, so like if the red tile is overlapping isolated red, then I kill it basically. So, let's see all that in action. Sorry if that explanation was terrible. It's pretty hard to explain this stuff, honestly. Not even sure I understand it. So let's see it. Ow. Ouch. Oh yeah, and also added in collisions. That's the thing that happened too. Come on. There we go. And boom. Now it definitely looks a little bit awkward, and I polished that up later and made it like speed up and stuff a little bit, but now if they've been encircled, they get destroyed, and it just leaves behind this stuff. And I was pretty unhappy with this, to be honest, because I kind of just wanted the encirclements to get destroyed, so ultimately I ended up adding that in as a feature as well, but yeah, all this encirclement stuff took quite a while, took like a day or something. Pretty happy with how it turned out though. Before publishing, I still had a couple more things to do, though. I had to, first of all, make it so that the encirclements worked better. I also added in these cities. They don't end up actually doing anything other than just showing who controls them. I added in music and sound effects. I added in a main menu. But after all that, there was still one more problem, and that was the line bug. That thing from earlier where, like, if you collide with your other units, the lines don't disappear properly. And I simply could just not figure that out on my own. I scrolled through the code forever, and I just could not figure out what the problem was to save my life. So I had to enlist help. And in the Construct 3 forums, literally like hours before the deadline, my man over here, Dop2000, managed to just completely save my ass. And yeah, the solution was actually incredibly simple. I'm pretty sure, where was it? It's literally just this, I think. Yeah, it's just that one thing right there that I missed for each red unit. Because apparently, like, if they both collide at the same time, it kind of bugs out because I didn't check for both of them, so, like, yeah, it kind of messes up the code. But, managed to get that fixed. I bought him another coffee for that. This guy has helped me before. I don't know why he does this, but I appreciate it. Alright, so, without further ado, let's see the final product. Got these, goofy pop sound effects. Little tutorial down here. I don't really have time for a good tutorial. And yeah. So yeah, the commanding works well now. The line bug has been fixed. The performance still isn't amazing, and for that reason I discouraged users from using the web version of the game. Although I still left it up in case I had no choice. You can take cities, though it doesn't really do anything. you can do maneuvers like that. Also, I should probably say that the enemy AI was a little bit rushed, so they don't really actually try to encircle you, although they still kind of put up the fight. And yeah, now encirclements automatically disappear after you take them. Got this goofy background music going on in the background. And yeah, it's definitely kind of laggy, but I mean, hey, it could have been worse. It could have been much worse. Ow. There we go. And you also cannot recommand units while they're moving. It adds a little bit more strategy to things. And the enemy AI is kind of simple. Basically, they all are assigned to one of your units, and if your unit gets behind them, then they try to attack it, unless they're an attack unit, which this one is, in which case they just try to go straight for your capital. But that didn't really work out for him. Did it. And yeah, let's just go take their capital. And there we go, it's Micro Wars. Didn't really have time for a map or super complex enemy AI, but I'm still pretty happy with it. But let's see how it did compared to other entries to the jam. And yeah, also I put a little bit more effort into the itch.io page. And the final score is number 908 out of 2,199 entries. So not terrible. Notably, it did super well in innovation and did pretty poorly in visuals, which is pretty understandable. I clearly didn't really try that much with visuals. But yeah, I definitely had a very good reason for why I fit the jam theme 100%, definitely. And if you want to try this game out, check it out in the description below. Alright, so what did we learn? Or I guess what did I learn for the most part? Well, I figured out how to use arrays, more or less, so that's pretty cool. I had to solve quite a few technical issues while working on this. It's definitely generally more of like a technical project compared to my other ones, which are mostly design-focused projects. So yeah, that was pretty nifty. As for whether I think I'll actually expand on this game or not, I'm honestly not really sure. I mean, I've got my hands full with some projects that I'm working on right now, some of which are announced, like 5-Star Fishy. Go wishlist on Steam. And other ones are not announced, like one that I should be finishing within a month or two, but yeah, I haven't really talked about yet. And yeah, lastly, quick shout out to this YouTuber, T in Python. He's also working on a game inspired by that same animation that I mentioned at the start of the video, and it looks pretty cool. Definitely better than my version, so be sure to check that out. And yeah, see you around. Also, wishlist 5-Star Fishy on Steam, please. Or else,